Hey everyone, welcome to the Admit One podcast. Today we have my good friend, artist, coder, and digital creator who has dedicated himself to exploring functional use cases for NFT technology, specifically in the art sector. These explorations culminated in development and subsequent launch of the generative art NFT platform, Art in November of 2020, and release of his own NFT project called the Chromie Squiggle. I'm fortunate enough to be collaborating with him on 90cc ITERATION-02 in Miami in a few weeks. And we'll be discussing this in detail, as well as inspirations and how you can mint your own live this year at Art Basel. Please welcome Snowfro. Hey, Snow, what's up?
Hey everybody, thank you so much for having me. This is awesome.
Yeah, I mean, I want to start off, because we literally just saw each other, I think it was about 36 hours ago in Marfa, Texas. This was my first time in Marfa. It's far. It's definitely far out there, but it was beautiful. It was an amazing experience. And this is the second time you guys are doing it, right, with Art Blocks?
Correct. Yeah, we hosted a weekend of art in West Texas. This is our second year. Our first year we had a couple hundred people. This time we think we had somewhere around 500 people show up, which based on what you said, it's quite the journey to get there. So the demonstration of kind of excitement and commitment to this space is pretty real from the people that came, including you. It was awesome to see you there. It was awesome to watch people's faces be like, wait, you're gmoney? I mean, literally their faces just like light up. It was such a wonderful experience.
Yeah, I mean, it was like for me, it was really cool. I got the chance to meet a few Admit One members based on the West Coast that made the trek out there. So that was really cool meeting some members IRL. But like, I mean, I gotta say, like, there were two things that I really noticed this weekend, and I was like constantly glued to my phone because I've been following this FTX drama. This thing, it's like kind of like out of a movie. Like I'm like, there's no like just when you think it can't get any worse, they're like, but wait, there's more, right? So I've been glued to it. But I will say one of the things that I noticed was like almost nobody was like talking about price. Nobody was like, oh my god, like the fallout from FTX, like you couldn't really feel it while you were there, which I thought was really cool and interesting, right? I think it kind of talked to, I think partly because there's, you only do self custody of NFTs, right? Like there's not really a platform for you to custody your assets. So I think pretty much everybody is self custodying stuff, but like it just kind of like goes to, kind of, it reminds me of when I first got into the space and people weren't as focused. They weren't like, oh, I'm going to buy this and I'm going to flip it for like 2 or 3x right away. It was like, oh, I'm here for the art and I'm here for the actual movement. And that was like more apparent than ever just going there this weekend.
Yeah, it's pretty wild. I mean, this could be kind of a hot take in that, I since the beginning of Art Blocks, I've said that for Art Blocks to be successful long term, we have to transcend through crypto and like decouple ourselves from crypto. And that doesn't mean that we don't care about crypto. Obviously, we wouldn't be here today if it wasn't for the tools that are provided by the Ethereum blockchain. But like, I also think there's a world where we use the tools we need and want for like our platform and our product to be effective. And we should not be susceptible to the things that happen with some of the other tools that are not actually pertinent to like the provenance and the proof of ownership of a piece of digital art. And so, it's times like these when, I mean, obviously what you just said, like, yeah, we were able to remain relatively isolated, but not completely. We go out of our way to kind of try to onboard people. We want more people to have this experience. We had, I had a close friend of mine yesterday mint her first NFT with Stevie P and Matt with Plottables with the project, the Instructions for the Defacement Project, which, God, I think is like such a brilliant work. And there's a lot of people that might have done that by, in the past, putting $100, $200 on FTX or on exchange and not even being able to process or understand how they could take $100 from their bank account, put it into FTX, and then it no longer be there anymore. Like that just doesn't make sense in our normal everyday consumer process. And so, on the one hand, we're out there trying to promote people to like dip their toes in the water, but to do that, they have to be onboarded through some kind of organization, including FTX. And so we may be responsible for having suggested that somebody put real hard-earned money onto that platform. And those people currently are being drowned out by like the millions and millions of dollars that are being lost also by like innocent platforms that may have either been coerced or suggested to host their funds on that platform. And so, yeah, it's pretty scary. And ultimately, those things should not impact the world of art. They shouldn't. I mean, they can impact consumer sentiment on spending habits, which I think is obviously going to happen in the traditional art world as well. But we need to really kind of go out our way to figure out how we can decouple from these things. And yeah, we can decouple sentimentally, like we did this weekend, where it really didn't come up very much. But you are going to see like a significant change in buying habits after this, and it's just a matter of a timeline when people don't have to participate and support centralized exchanges in order to participate in crypto. And I guess one point of that is, for example, yesterday my friend was able to mint using a credit card. There's services that she was able to, she had to create an Ethereum wallet, which is kind of, different thing altogether, but you can do that with MetaMask. You can do that in hopefully safer and safer ways, but she was able to acquire an NFT by putting a credit card in and spending $100. And I think that those are steps that we can take to be able to kind of isolate ourselves from some of the madness that happens around us.
Yeah, and like to that point is like I think one of the interesting things with Art Drop, right? And I think when we were originally going through like the steps of it, you're like, oh wow, like you don't even need a wallet in order to buy the shirt, right? Because of like the flow and like the IRL version, the IRL minting, it makes it difficult, I think, as we've seen like with Bright Moments, right? Where it's like if you don't have a wallet set up beforehand, like it extends the process and makes it like much longer. And it's like, how can you get that consumer flow? Because like we don't have the exact steps just built out yet, but it's like, you're going to be able to buy the shirt with a credit card and then pull the NFT into your wallet when you want to set it up afterwards. And if you don't want to set it up, that's fine too, right? If you're just like, oh, I like the shirt and I like the design, that's cool, because to your point is like, not everybody's going to like care for the technology or want to do self-custody or whatever have you, but it's the option is there if you want it, right? So that's like, to your point is like, I think over time that, will obviously be getting easier. And one of the things that I liked was like, and this is what I like about the beauty of handing out the POAPs is that they're free, right? And it's literally like, I can tell somebody, it's like, oh yeah, just put your email address. And then if you want to create a wallet afterwards, you can create a wallet, right? Like, but it's really up to you. And it's like, if you don't, that's also fine, right? It's really like what you want to do. But ultimately, we just need to make those easier and more seamless for consumers in the long run. So I totally agree. One of the things I wanted to also point out was that I met so many people that were, and like it makes me so bullish on art blocks and the space as a whole, is that we're like telling me like just people. I think I had 3 or 4 people that went up to me and go, oh my God, like we were looking at your collection of squiggles and we were looking at like these unfound, like almost like digging up undiscovered rarities. And they're like, you have like one of the most rare ones. And like it was just like blowing my mind. I'm like, because they're like, I was like, well, what makes it rare? They're like, oh, well, we're going to talk about it. We're going to publish something on it like in a couple of weeks. I'm like, please let me know. Like, I'd love to know, because like people are just like finding even more subtleties in the rarities, which I think is really cool, because that's when you have that. I use that with wine a lot, where it's like, if I were to drink a bottle of wine, like a glass of wine, I couldn't tell the difference between like $100 bottle and $100,000 bottle.
Yeah.
But the experts can, right? And it's that little minutia and the difference that will be the difference between like $100 or $1,000 bottle and that $100,000 bottle. And like to me, it's like I think art is the same way, where it's like most people would just be like, oh yeah, like it's the same, it's just a different variation of a squiggly line. But then like the real experts will be like
the connoisseurs.
Oh, no. Yeah, like the rarity is like literally this small little difference, and that is like a 3 to 5x difference in price. So I think it's that part like really blew my mind of how granular people were getting, and like really just like studying the ecosystem of even the collections that are out there and kind of like digging deep into that, which I think is really, really cool.
Yeah, that happened with punks. Like almost 2 years into punks, people started being like, hey, 7 Trader, oh my gosh, like this is a very rare punk. That wasn't an implied rarity that the Larva Labs had put out there, but little by little, people spent enough time digging around and understanding the product and the project that they were able to find these other little things. Like I'll never forget this guy, Dave, DDAAVVE, found those two
He was
pixels, like those two punks that had, or I think it was two that had pixels that were only in existence in those two punks, right? We did um, a color study of the entire color palette of all the punks, and there was two colors, and they only existed in two different punks. And like, you can't just like dive into punks and figure that out. You have to literally get in there, get
right.
deep into the weeds, and everything from whether it's a single trait to a 0 trait to a 7 trait to pixel colors. I don't know. That's what connoisseurship is. It's becoming an expert, and that's one thing that I've learned. You know, I got to mention this a couple of times this last weekend, but last year in Marfa, Art Blocks collectors were, you know, at least comments came from the community. It's like, oh, people, all they do is talk about price, and yeah, I mean, we do want to talk about art, and we really want to focus on art, but guess what happens when like you're an expert at something? Like you want to talk about that, like. And when you're surrounded by a lot of other experts in the same subject, guess what you're going to talk about? And it's not a matter of whether you're financializing the art. It's the same thing as a group of appraisers that are appraising old BMWs or old, like, you know, fine art. Like, we have these group of people that are maybe the world's foremost experts at the appraisal of a squiggly rainbow line. And it is pretty cool that they're in the same town together, because this is a pretty kind of like remote process that we're all living, but they should be able to kind of sit around and nerd out about these individual traits. I thought that was pretty exciting.
Yeah, I mean, like, it really blew my mind when I was talking to a couple of them, and you know, some of them are also members of Squiggle DAO, and they were telling me how they were picking up super rare stuff at the floor, and I was like, that is awesome. I think that reminds me of, you know, like there's this there's the Museum of Ponce down on the south side of Puerto Rico, where I guess apparently like 50 or 70 years ago, the patron that started the museum, he went to, like, I guess some of the experts in the world of, I think, like 15th century English art or something. Like, it's a very specific time period that was very like undervalued. People are like, like this isn't really worthless, or it's isn't really worth that much. And he just started buying a bunch of them up. And then over time now, like, I think one of like the quintessential pieces of that era is at the museum in Ponce, right? Wow. And he was like, I want to kind of like build this collection because I want people to come to Puerto Rico to see how beautiful my island is. And in order to come, like, to go view this piece, they would have to visit Puerto Rico. And now if you want to go, you know, if you're studying that time period as an art history major, like, you have to go to PR if you want to go see that piece in person. That's and so amazing. Like this kind of reminds me of the same thing, right? Where you have these, to your point, these connoisseurs that are like, oh yeah, this is massively undervalued. You know, we're going to be able to, you know, get like a good collection going, and then kind of unveil the thesis. It's funny because I was talking to one of those connoisseurs, and they were like, oh yeah, you know, every time I find something and it's listed in your vault, I'm like, fuck. Like, I'm not going to buy it because I don't sell, right? Like, I've had plenty of people be like, hey, would you sell this? I'm like, nope, not interested, right? But like, I'm like, dude, like, tell me how I can help you. Like, I would obviously love to know this stuff, but it was amazing, right? And I think the testament that you were able to get, what was it, 500-600 people?
I'd say 500 in the end, yeah.
Out to Marfa, which was 3 hours away from El Paso. What was it, 7 hours from Dallas? Like, you know,
I think the average travel time was 12 hours.
Yeah, like the fact that you were able to get so many people out there, I think is a testament.
And we had people from Japan, New Zealand, Hong Kong, Thailand, all over Europe.
All over.
I mean, I'd say at least 25 people came from outside, like well outside of the United States. It's wild. And, you know, I think something that I know that usually you probably ask all the questions, but I just want to like highlight something that's, I think, really important here, because there's something that you and I are very aligned with that I don't think people kind of really fully process yet. And that's the way that you distributed Admit One. You know, like, if you were walking around with that POAP and you were saying, hey, this is one day going to turn into this big thing, like, people would be probably attacking you for it. But instead you're like, hey, claim my POAP, like, participate, like, be part of this. No promises, no ideas, nothing, just like, and, you know, I just remember having so many people were like, oh, I don't do that, or I don't need that. And I'm like, and once you clued me into some of what you were doing, some of what you're planning with 90cc, like, I remember even going to people and being like, look, like, trust me, you want to claim that POAP? And they're like, nah, whatever. And so I think there's something really beautiful there. And the reason I'm bringing that up is the same thing kind of happened in Marfa, right? Like, and not just in Marfa, in a lot of things that we do, it's this concept of delight. Like we could have announced Marfa with a headlining act by Jamie XX, which happens to be my favorite musician in the world, or at least one of by far the favorite musicians in the world. And it would have been a very different crowd or a very different concept than, hey, come to Marfa, come party with us. Oh, and by the way, now that you're here, then you know, like traveled through the desert to get here, we're delighting you with this, like really, I mean, in my opinion, a beautiful experience. And I think crypto has an opportunity to be full of that. We try so hard to fight against decentralization, and we've kind of talked about this to death, I think, sometimes with the creator royalties and, like, you know, trying to enforce things, trying to enforce 1 mint per wallet last year for art blocks because, you know, people were spamming the contract or, you know, using bots. And in reality, crypto almost forces us to engage and participate in other ways. We have to be creative about how we can engage with the people that give a fuck about what we're doing, and not the people that are opportunistic about how to do the things that we're doing. And there's nothing wrong with opportunism. And like, we have to understand that as humans, like, we want financial success, we want financial freedom. And so there are opportunities in this space that enable that. But being able to take a step back and apply creativity, not in, you know, how to extract money from people, but how to reward people for participating in the way that is supporting the efforts that we're doing, is it requires effort. It requires creativity, but the reward, at least personally for me, and also watching, you know, you do it in a very similar way with Admit One, I think that reward, at least from a founder perspective, is like, it's just incredibly meaningful. And I encourage people to quit going out there and, you know, obviously in some cases there are always going to be allow lists and there's going to be all this stuff, but like, find ways to find your audience and give them meaning and reward them for having given you the time of day in a time when maybe other people were just rolling their eyes. You've done a really good job of that. And I'm just really proud to get to like continue to work with you and collaborate with you, because you really, I mean, to me, that's like one of the most important things about crypto is in this kind of entire space, is that we have this opportunity to delight people. And that often comes with like surprises. And it's kind of like, the only way to delight people really now is with surprises, because if something delightful comes around without a surprise, it'll just get botted to death.
Right. Yeah.
So we just kind of, you know, and we have these opportunities to do so. And you really, really have taken that opportunity. And I'm just really grateful for it.
Thanks. Well, I will say that a lot of that was inspired by you, right? And so like with you know, and I mean that, right? Because especially when I first came into the space, right? Like, and you know, we've spoken about this story on the Twitter Spaces before, so I don't want to bore the listeners that are listening to it again. But like, I remember when I first minted the Squiggles, you were like, "What are you doing? Stop wasting your money. Buy some punks." And then, you know, between you and Nate Alex, like, you know, over the next 2 or 3 days, you guys really red pilled me on punks. So I was like, all right, I'm in. But like, I think you've done like, and a lot of times too is like, when I have an idea, I kind of stress test it with you. You know, Derek Edwards, right, from Collab, who I love talking to him, and you know, they started the Glitch Gallery, right, which was amazing. You know, a lot of amazing events were held there this weekend as well. And I love what they're doing, but like, you guys are also like the people that, you know, I bounce ideas off, where it's like, am I thinking about this right? Like, what do you guys think? Right. Because the one thing I always respect about your opinion is that you're very aligned with your core values, and like, you don't waver on them, right? Whereas, you know, a lot of people will be aligned with core values, as we're kind of seeing now, right, over the past week, where people will talk about core values, but that's not the way they operate. Right?
I think the opportunities in this space are just so magnificent, because this isn't going to last forever. What I'm about to say is not going to last forever, but it's like when we say it's still early, like, it's still early. Why? Because right now, if you have a good idea that you're willing to be committed to, which means it may not pan out in the first month or year, but you're willing to like stick to your guns and just walk in a straight path and be patient, you will probably be successful in the crypto space, even if it's like not the most revolutionary idea, just because people can't seem to like control themselves. They can't just walk in a straight line. Like, that's literally all it takes right now to have a respectable community supporting you in this environment. And that won't last forever. Just like with any other business, as we hit homeostasis. I mean, I remember Kickstarter days, right? Like, Kickstarter was originally a platform where some new person could literally get their stuff in front of millions of people simply because it was bleeding edge innovative technology, but then eventually, like, you actually had to have something very, very well built to even start getting feedback on your process. So I really encourage people to take note of kind of how, it's kind of like becoming a last man standing thing at this
It,
point. It's like, it's depressing, honestly, but it's literally last man standing, in terms of the ability for like creators, founders, and just participants in the space to just stay on track and
it's funny.
continue delivering just,
It's funny
for
you
their.
say that. It's funny you say that because I think literally like an hour before I hopped on this, somebody tweeted like the same exact thing. It's like just be a decent person, and you will probably be successful in crypto,
It's
right?
like,
Like that's it. Just
yeah,
be a decent person, not even be a good person. Be a decent person, right?
decent person. Yeah.
So yeah, no, it's just funny because like I think it's like we're at that point in the cycle where but again, it's like just maintain true, right? And that's kind of like, I read last night on my flight home, I reread like my manifesto for that I dropped for admit one, and be like, yeah, like just make sure, you stick to these, right? And I actually on that 3 hour ride from Marfa to El Paso, I actually listened to the book, The Four Agreements, which we're actually reading in admit one for
Oh
our
wow.
for our book club. And it's kind of like to exactly what you just said, right? Is like the four agreements are one, be a person of your word. Two, oh my God, I forgot the other two. Two, don't take it personally. Three is don't make assumptions, and four is always try your best, right? And
I
as
love
long
that.
as you do those four things, like you will be successful over time, right? And just stay true to those, right? And so I feel like it's very pertinent now, more than ever, right, in crypto. Because in the bull market, I feel like people, things get away from people, right? Like literally a year ago at this time, crypto was making highs, right? And just I remember I was in the shower on Sunday and I was like, wow, like what exactly 1 year ago today, I was in a very different mood than I am now, right?
It's crazy, man. Sounds like you had a productive ride home. I instead just degened into this dollar bill project that was going to shut off at 2 in the afternoon, and I was like, I
Oh,
must
yeah,
have as many
I
of these as
missed that. I
possible
wanted to do that. There were a
beforehand.
couple of
So
people that I saw that did that. The dollar bill project. I couldn't find it when I went looking for it on Saturday, and so I ended
it
up
is
missing.
just another demonstration, I think, of just delight. Like, I mean, literally, these guys, they set up these plotters, they gave you a dollar bill, they made you sign your life away, and then they gave you the tools to like create what I consider to be one of the most beautiful conceptual artworks that are out there right now. And this idea, and this kind of goes a little bit towards what we're doing in Miami, right? Like this idea that you can mint something on demand and then you can make it yourself. It's DIY, or if it's not made by you, it's made in front of you. It's like right live in front of you. You are producing the final output on demand. Like, it's just these little things are touching to people, and this is why my friend minted one, right? Like, she came, she saw it, she was like, oh wow, this is really interesting, and she participated. Pixels on a screen are incredible for a lot of people, but they're not compelling for the whole world. The whole world is not compelled by pixels on a screen. In fact, there's still a lot of learning and huge paths ahead of us on figuring out how to live with crypto, crypto art, digital art on a screen. Physicality is what's bringing people together, and is going to be what lowers the barriers for people. And what you're doing also, I think, I got to mint aventurines and your POAPs from your shirt, and like, it's this optionality. Like, you have this physical thing that is meaningful and also very high quality, because I think people were wearing it like multiple days in a row and it didn't smell bad. And like, then as a crypto nerd on my end, I have the ability to go and like mint a POAP because I ran into you. Like, I just, it's just all, it all seems very clear to me. Like, the future of this all seems very clear. And it just seems like we need to just make sure that everybody that is curious has a path. And you're doing that with what you're working on, right? And you if you have, what is it, 200 POAPs minted per each of the iteration ones and future iterations. Like, if you think about this organic nature of what it would be like for someone to acquire their first NFT in that way, simply just because they have a phone and they're next to you, um, and what sort of potential allowance that could be for the future, like, I don't know. I just think the future is really bright and exciting. I don't think we know what we're exactly. I mean, I think we have a vision here, but we have no idea what's about to happen. But I really think it's going to be very easy and clear once we start seeing the adoption on a more mass level.
Right. And I think that's where I think we have I think we see the world like very similarly, right? Is like, one of the things I really like about, kind of distributing the POAPs is you're you're fostering real life engagement, right? Which is at the end of the day, as humans, that's what we want. We want to connect with other people. And I go back to my original POAP event that I did in Miami back in Bitcoin 2021, BTC Miami 2021, where there were two people that met and started a venture fund. The only thing that they had in common before that point was that they followed me and that they showed up to that location at the same time.
That's
right?
amazing.
And that was just from like me, and I only had a couple thousand followers. So like to me, it's like, what happens if we put that on steroids and then like take these people that are, crypto native, that are interested, that like, are stand for the values that I stand for, and get them to interact with each other in real life without me having to foster that. Like what kind of cool shit can come out of there, right? Like I'm sure amazing companies, amazing friendships, partnerships, DAOs, all these things will be born out of that, just because people are like, oh, hey, like, can I collect your POAP? And then a conversation starts, right? And I saw that firsthand even this past weekend where, people were just like, they both came to collect my POAP, and then they started talking, and I like, had to exit the conversation, whatever. And then I see later on that they're just hanging out like a couple hours later. And so it's like, to me, it's like, this is like that human connection is the most important part of all this. And to your point is like, not like we connected as humans in Discord, right? Like that's, we did business together. We were doing deals together before I even knew what your name was, even knew what your phone number was, right? And we were just doing stuff, cool shit together back before then. It's like, when you add in that human component, I think it really takes it to the next level and just shows the humanity of everything that's happening behind the screens.
It's awesome. Yeah.
Yeah. So, before we get into what we're going to do in Miami, I want to talk a little bit about, are you in Mexico right now?
No, I'm home
Okay.
right now, and then I'm flying out to Mexico tomorrow.
Okay. And like, let's talk a little bit about what you're doing with Bright Moments there. For those, I know a couple of people are flying down there. I wish I could be down there personally, but in the lead up of planning everything for Art Basel, I sadly can't make it, but I'm going to be there in spirit.
I can't tell you how many people I said bye to yesterday. They're like, "Oh, I'll see you in a couple days." I'm just like, what? Like, I mean, for me, this is like pretty hardcore amounts of travel, and I do it obviously with plenty of joy and excitement, but also, man, it beats you down. And like, I think the idea that you have this journey that so many people are taking. I mean, at this point, there's a group of folks that I'm going to see last week, this week, and then once again in Miami for Art Basel the first week in or the last week in November, first week in December. And just, huge props to those people that are kind of, I hope, living their best lives, like really getting to like soak this all in and enjoy it, because it'd be, I like to like take a step back and absorb. I recently commented on somewhere where like I actually have not taken a step back to really fully absorb what has happened, what has transpired over the last year. But I do try to take like a moment and like, I was trying to picture what it would be like in Marfa if I was just a participant, not, hosting this, and what it would be like to go to Mexico City. And I've been to Bright Moments events, not as an artist, and so I can at least have that experience in the back of my mind. But I'm really excited and happy for these people that are traveling and just getting to participate at that level. The amount of support that I've gotten on my project is incredible. I've mentioned before, it's like the anxiety is also incredible. When people are spending thousands and thousands of dollars on NFTs pre and post reveal of the artist, like people would text me and be like, well, I'm guaranteed a Snowfro now because they bought like all 10 of the mint passes. And in my mind, I'm like, well, I sure hope you like my artwork. Like, it's just so scary. It's so intimidating. And, but at the same time, it's like incredibly rewarding. And, I feel that I have a group of collectors that are just such supporters. And a lot of them are in Marfa, giving just nothing but like motivational chats, as they see that things are hard and kind of a struggle sometimes. And I will feel very relieved by next Saturday when all of the 100 artworks are released
Mhm.
and out there, and like I'm done because it's immutable, it's on chain, and that's the end of that conversation. And I'll feel really relieved, and I'm going to be really excited to celebrate with everybody that minted my work. But then also, the brilliance of the artists that are at this event next week is just unprecedented. I mean, we have some of the most OG generative artists in the entire world are going to be there minting artworks for people that are just passionate about the space and passionate about crypto art. Also, all the crypto mexas that are going to be minted and all the locals that are getting them for free. Bright Moments has always done a really great job of being inclusive in ways that most other platforms just have not been able to do. A crypto mexa might be $1,000. That is just simply not accessible to a vast majority of the world's population. Yet they're out there giving away 333 of them every single time they do an event in a city. That level of inclusivity and borderline generosity is just unprecedented in the art world for sure, and then also just in our space. So really excited to kind of come together with everybody in Mexico. I have a lot of family there. I'm hoping to see a significant chunk of my family in Mexico. I've also failed to reach out to a lot of them just because things have been a little bit crazy. So I owe some communications, but yeah, it's going to be a lot of fun. I am someone that judges a restaurant by their hot sauce. I will probably not participate in a lot of hot sauce next week just because things have been a little bit crazy. There's just no time for those effects to really kind of permeate through. And so, yeah, we'll be eating tacos and talking art with a bunch of nerds for the weekend. Yeah. Anyone that's coming, I just can't wait to see you there.
Yeah, I mean, I wish I could be there, because we ran into each other a couple times this past weekend, but I didn't get as much time with you as I would have liked, right? And I'm sure I'm not the only one. So, but I'm definitely looking forward to it. And I definitely understand where you're at in terms of anxiety, because I'm feeling the same way with the Art Basel pop up, because there are so many moving parts, right?
Oh,
and
man.
it's like there's a lot of like complications and these things. It's like nuances that you're like, well, we have to like plan for this and we have to plan for that. And there's a lot of things that's not just like, mint, right? Like press a button and mint, which I found like really interesting, right? And these are problems that will have to get solved regardless. So it's like, why not just try figuring out how to solve it now, right? Yeah. Like one of them was a simple one, right? Where I remember when we originally made the announcement, people were like, how many of these will exist? And I was like, at most 2,000. And the reason why I couldn't commit to a number was because we were trying to figure out from the manufacturer how many physical t-shirts we could get. Like we knew we were going to cap it, but we didn't know what number it was going to be at, right? And so it's like, it's not as simple as like, oh yeah, well, there's demand for this, so we're just going to mint that much. It's like, even if we have the demand for it, we physically can't fulfill it, right, in the way that we want. So it's been interesting, right? It's always a learning process, but hopefully what's going to happen is predetermined to happen by the universe, and everything will work out. But there is a lot of
fun. Right? We're going to be in the same room. It'll be great. I hear we're going to be sitting on some really awesome furniture. It's going to be so much fun. And yeah, to me, it'll be the culmination of this year, right? I mean, for me at least. I don't know if there's a lot of crypto holidays parties that are happening over the holidays. I hope crypto can actually take a break the second half of December, but it'll be a good kind of like ending point. Art Blocks is doing a lot of fun stuff. We are going to be neighbors. Well, 2 doors down from you guys at Basel. So, hopefully we'll get to share some of the same people kind of coming through, and plus all the fun events that are going to happen the rest of that week. It's going to be great.
What are you most excited about? Like, I guess when I came to you with the collab, and because I know we spoke about it a little bit, and you were like, really excited it from the start, even before we even had anything segmented or finalized. What did you find the most exciting about working on this? Because like obviously you could have done this on your own. You've been thinking about it a long time, but like, what was it that excited you the most about doing, the collab with 90cc?
I mean, there's a thing that we're calling auto magical with what Art Blocks has done, which is, in the process of creating generative art in the past, a generative artist would generate, and I mean, I'm sure there's different things that could have happened, but for the most part, they would create an algorithm. They would then kind of self-curate, look at the ones that they like, press spacebar to refresh, pick the ones they want, save them on the hard drive, then tokenize them, and then list them on some kind of platform as a token for sale. And what Artblocks did is it cut out those 3 steps in the middle between the moment of creation and the moment, of planning, of developing the code, and the moment of the minting of the NFT. And it allowed the user to contribute, not aesthetically, just to contribute in their presence, in their existence, because obviously the algorithm and the blockchain were going to create the aesthetics of the piece. I think that's a really powerful mechanism. And that pixels on a screen have demonstrated how powerful that mechanism is. But I think that product market fit, that distribution mechanism, is very much going to impact every little tiny corner of our lives. And that includes physical goods. And so the opportunity to get to do something like that in person, to like demonstrate the power of this auto magical concept where, I know it's like a serious pain in the butt for you guys to like organize everything and make this happen. But for the person that's going to come and, swipe a credit card, press a button, and then be presented with a 100% one of X shirt a few moments afterwards, I just hope that they feel that auto magical concept. I hope that we're demonstrating what the auto magical concept is. I feel very confident that we are going to, and being able to do that with a brand that I just really want to support. I mean, if you literally look at this project, it's like, and I am underlining you with my like support as someone that is just so grateful for your presence in this space. It's such a no-brainer, man, for us to be doing this together. It's such a no-brainer for me to like want to support 9DCC in this way. And it's an exploration. Artblocks is all about explorations these days. We are every little thing that we're doing is just like, okay, we want to continue to just prioritize and support the best generative art from the best generative artists in the world. And Artblocks is doing that on artblocks.io, and will continue to do that and continue to like enhance that process, harden that process, make Artblocks itself a unit of a platform, even more than what we thought that we could do up until recently. But then understanding that this will apply fundamentally apply well outside of just pixels on a screen. Exploring what those opportunities are and what that potential is, to me, is one of the most important things that we can do. From a, keep me motivated and energized to spend 40% of my life on the road and away from my family, because, I love crypto and I love y'all and I love seeing everybody, but I also like deeply miss my family, and like we just also want to be home. So like, what keeps me going, what keeps me motivated? And that's just exploring these opportunities in a future where like it would almost be weird for you to get a one of 1,000 or 1 of 1,000 shirt versus a 1 of 1 of X shirt. Sorry, I think I'm screwing up those numbers.
No.
In a future where like, the less exciting version of getting a shirt is one where everybody gets the same shirt, because it's just so common that everybody's going to get a unique shirt. I want to make sure that Artblocks is like on the bleeding edge there. I want to make sure that Artblocks is relevant. Like if we have woken giants up to this concept, this idea that people want individual things, and that there's this technology that enables a distribution method for individual things that really had not been explored very much, like it would be a really big bummer to see like giant organizations and companies just kind of be like, oh yeah, smart move, let's throw billions of dollars into this and just become the leaders in this space. We right now, as a relatively new organization, like have to fight really hard to make sure that we stay at the forefront of that. And the only way to do that is by exploring every little tiny way that we can provide this technology for people to have an auto magical experience between being the creator of an NFT and therefore a physical good that's associated with it, alongside the artist, obviously, and then being presented with it with an auto magical experience. So you're going to be the very first, I think meaningful physical version of that. Bright Moments is kind of an intermediary there. Like, Artblocks is pixels on a screen on your computer screen at home in the privacy of your own home, which is also like its own intimate experience as well, which is pretty neat. Then Bright Moments turned it into like a live experience, an in-person tangible experience with pixels on a screen, but then also accompanied by physical things like prints or whatever. And then now you're taking it to that kind of fashion level. And I think the future is really bright. I think, one day you're going to see generative coffee tables and maybe even generative houses, and all using this technology in a way of providing, whether it's something as simple as a receipt, because I mean, the receipt of purchase is actually just in and of itself kind of fascinating. And that if I buy one of these shirts, I don't necessarily need Square to produce a receipt. Like, I have a transparent, irrefutable receipt of purchasing this physical and digital good in a way that doesn't even need like standard proof of point of sale infrastructure. Right. But then, what it means after, does that mean that I get allow listed because I bought this thing the first time to get to do something in the future with regards to this? Hopefully. I mean, we should be rewarding our customers for being our customers and for being our supporters. So yeah, what comes of this is going to be really hard to like put our brains around right now, but it's coming and it's exciting. And yeah, excited to be doing it with you specifically.
Yeah, no, thank you. I appreciate that. I really love the one of X idea, right? Where it's like everybody's going to have their own unique version of it, but you're going to know, right? It's like a squiggle, right? It's like, it when you see it. Right. It's like, oh yeah, like you have a different squiggle than I do. And you're going to see people that are like walking down the street. It's like, oh man, like that is, that's a rare iteration of that. Right. That's a rare one. And it's funny because I don't know if I was talking to you about this or I was talking to somebody else where I could definitely see someone like, because one of the things that I liked about the Bright Moments activation, because I went to the New York one and I was like, wow, this is really fucking dope. I really like what they're doing here. Is kind of like the community aspect of it, right? Where it's like you're watching everybody's mints, right? And you're like, oh, like that's a rare one. Oh, wow, that one's like really cool. Like I like the way that looks. And I can see that happening with this as well, where, we're going to be showing the mints obviously online, in the actual space itself, online, and also like outside. So if you're standing outside, you can see the mints happening in real time. And I could see like a market developing as people walk out where they're like, oh, you just bought this one. Like, I mean, I'll never forget when I minted, I think it was like my Hyper Slinky. Von Mises hit me up maybe like 2 or 3 hours afterwards being like, hey, I'll buy this from you for like 1.5 ETH. And I'm like, thanks. But, I'm not selling. Thank God I didn't sell it, right? Like I would have been giving that away for free. But like I could see people probably being like, oh, that's like a rare one. Like I want that one. And, people, it's going to be really interesting. I like want to kind of let it like, let happen organically what is supposed to happen. And then kind of be like, oh, I thought that was I didn't expect that. I thought that was really interesting, right? Even with the distribution of POAPs, like I haven't necessarily like given rules or been like, this is what I want you to do. I just kind of want to see what ends up happening organically. And then, see like, oh, okay, this is what people like. Okay, how do we encourage more of that behavior? And so, kind of build the community around that.
It's going to be fun. I don't think we should ever really make assumptions anyways. Yeah. I think, let's see how it goes. Let's kind of feel it out and let's just hope for the best in terms of the vibe and the quality of the product is, understood simply by being a 90cc product. So let's see what happens afterwards. And really, let's see what happens after a year and 2 years and 5 years. No,
I agree. I think, it's funny too, because, and I don't think we've discussed like the vibe of the actual pop-up itself. So I'm going to drop some alpha here just because we have the reservation system going live in about 15 minutes for those that are watching through Token Proof. And so that Admit One holders have a 24-hour window where they can reserve some spots, and then it'll be open up for general public on Tuesday at noon. But the vibe was very much like, and I remember thinking about this, is like, okay, like, what does the future, to your point, is like in the future, right? We're going to want these auto magical experiences where people show up and like, it's going to be like custom on demand made stuff because people want that individuality. So it's like, what does that look like? And, as I was thinking about it, like a lot of like Westworld is in like the not too distant future. Right. And it's like, how do you like, what does a t-shirt manufacturing store look like where you go in and you kind of pick your design that's made right then and there, and then it's fulfilled for you right on the spot, and then you walk out with it, right?
And ideally in like 5 minutes, right? In that future, right? Literally 5 minutes, you're handed a beer, like when you go get your haircut, like, have a beer while you wait, and then you walk out 5 minutes later. It's like the easiest fashion thing ever.
Yeah, and so it's like, ultimately to your point is like, when you're talking about houses and coffee tables, like once the manufacturing technology catches up, then like the sky is the limit, right? Like you'll be able to make sneakers like in 5 minutes and whatever it is, that's all generative and on demand. But like today, it's like we have to play to where the tech is, right? And one of the things that we spent a lot of time figuring out was like, obviously we don't want to iron these on with like with the screen presses or whatever. It's like, okay, how do we deliver a quality product on demand and fulfilling on demand, right? Because that was like one of the technical hurdles we had to figure out as well.
Well, I mean, here's the thing. I remember back in the day. This is back in the tile days, right? Like I'd be like, I'm pretty sure that technology in tile has gotten to a point where we don't need a higher resolution tile. What we need is a tile that just doesn't repeat. I'm going to be way more OCD than most people here, but when I walk into a room with a marble looking tile, I spot the vein as it repeats across the room. It makes me absolutely crazy. And I'm thinking, okay, like why can't we just generate new fresh tiles using algorithms so that they never repeat? And I just remember people being like, yeah, that's cool, but people don't care. Like the amount of cost for that outweighs the amount that people will want it. Well, let's fast forward a little bit and understand how critical individuality has proven to be in the digital space and how that might be leaking into the physical space, and understand that it's one thing when you have a crazy, distributor importer being like, hey, I want to be able to produce one of one tiles, right? It's another thing when an entire industry is like showing that. And so and I'm using tile as an example, but this can apply to coffee tables and furniture and all the things. Like as an industry starts to realize that, they might dedicate an extra 10% of their R&D dollars to the process of manufacturing and what it looks like to get to that process of manufacturing one of X. And maybe in some instances, like in fashion, they might dedicate 50% or even 100% of the R&D budget to that. And so we will drag people, whether they want it or not, we will drag manufacturers into innovating that process. Because again, I don't need a higher resolution print on my shirt. I don't need like better fabrics. The innovation for what humans can sense as tangible has really kind of hit a wall.
Mhm.
And but where it hasn't hit a wall is in the process of manufacturing and what it looks like to develop systems. Okay, maybe it's 5% more expensive to produce a one of X in the future, but I think people will pay for that. Right now, it might be 50%, 100%, 500% more expensive to produce one of X. But if people see a desire for that, now manufacturers will compete for, hey, my one of X is only 200% more expensive than my one of X.
Mhm.
And then people are competing on that, and then eventually we start getting that number to go down and down and down, and consumers will have the ability to walk up to a vending machine, mint a output, it prints somewhere inside the thing, it just spits it out, and literally you have a fashion inside of a box inside of a vending machine. um, you know yeah,
Right.
the features are going to be really fun there, and I think that we are good. It's going to be slow. The manufacturing processes will be slow. That is definitely the world's slowest thing in the world is refining and tooling. But I think we will act as a pulling mechanism to make people just want to invest a little bit more into those processes. And you are laying the groundwork, sir. You and your awesome team, it was just like such a dream to work with, are laying the groundwork on making that happen. And yeah, it's going to be fun to see where it goes.
Well, yeah, no, thank you for leading the way and helping us, right? Because I think one of the things that obviously attracted us to working with the Art Blocks engine is that it is so smooth, right, and plug and play. And I think the first time we had our teams meet up, things were just so seamless, right? It was just like, oh, okay, cool. Like we only need to do like these two or three things from like the API pills, and it was all good. I want to ask this question because this was just asked in the Discord. I've been holding out on this for a while, so I'm glad that you're on to answer this question with me. Is a question that was asked was in reference to the style. Is there going to be some sort of random rare traits such as fuzzies, hyper rainbows, bold pipes, ribs, slinkies, etc. Of what the plan is with that? Because I've been holding that very close to the chest up until now, so I wanted to wait for you to share that.
Well, the the rate at which um, rare ones will exist in our collaboration will be the same rate that they exist in the Chromie Squiggles algorithm. So it'll be really interesting to see a hyper. It'll be really interesting to see a hypervariant, because if you did 1,000 mints, there's a very good chance that there will not be a single hypervariant in there, but there's also a chance that it will. So yes, I am not modifying the trait mechanics from the original Chromie Squiggle algorithm. I'm leaving it exactly as it is, and therefore you will have the same exact chance as with the typical Chromie Squiggle to be able to get a variant in this collaboration. And the variants will appear in different ways. So, we're underlining, I guess I don't want to give away too much, but just to kind of demonstrate this, the idea is that for the normal squiggles, it'll underline 90cc, and then the bold doesn't look at underlining at 90cc, and so it'll be like a pill behind it, and so it'll just be the background for it. So we're going to be tinkering with these over the coming weeks. Gmoney and his team have been very graceful to let me wrap up my Mexico City project and like this Marfa weekend thing as I dive into kind of really studying the algorithm for the drop. But I'm really excited to get to be creative. The squiggle is already a done deal. It's like an existing thing, and so now it's just how do I? And I mean, I can't stress this enough. How do I communicate my support for G, his team, his brand, with my baby, with this thing that I created? We're not trying to create a new artwork, right? Like, I mean, I think what gmoney is doing is a work of performance art, to be honest, but we're not creating a new artwork. We're just taking my thing I created that has, inspired a lot of people to do a lot of fun stuff, and saying, I want this to be a part of what you're doing. And so there's going to be a little bit of creative leeway there for me to tinker with how to demonstrate that. And I'm excited to see what comes of it.
Yeah, I'm excited too, because I remember, we had a couple different processes and thoughts that we had of how a collab could work, but we really wanted to make sure we did something new and original, and not just like, take a couple squiggles and put them on shirts like that. That really isn't that compelling. But I do think that this is, and I think people are going to be really geeked out on it, the same way that I am geeked out on all things squiggles as well. And I think it's gonna be fun. I think it's going to be a fun experience. I'm like really anxious and nervous about it, but to your point is like, I think we have to, if we don't push the boundaries, then who will, right? And it's like, I don't want to see like a major corporation come in, and they're going to take their time, right? Just because they have to make sure that, the investment is worth it, and, they're not going to make the move until they see product market fit. And, we're kind of proving that product market fit by saying, hey, look, there is demand for this. This is something that you should, invest your time and resources into. And we're showing you why and the best practices, right?
And as there's quite a bit of curiosity from pretty major names in this world, not in this space, like well outside this space. They're curious, and gosh, it's such a cool position to be in, to be sitting at the table with some of the biggest brands in the world, mm-hmm. and discussing how this is going to impact the future of consumerism. And I mean, in no world 2 years ago, when launching Artbox, would I have thought that I would be sitting on a call with Gmoney and these institutions talking about what this means, and feeling like we have an actual role in guiding the future of fashion, the future of furniture, potentially. Like, this is absolutely like bonkers. Mm-hmm. And but it's happening, and we're little by little, we're going to see more and more of this come to life. And I just can't wait.
Yeah, no, I can't wait. I'm like so excited about this. I know you've been like hopping on our weekly calls, and I know I give you so much credit because you've been so busy with obviously everything planning for Marfa, everything with Mexico City, and now this. And obviously you guys have your own activation, and you've been so generous with your time of doing this, right, and making sure this gets done in the right way. Because I mean, I think I don't really remember, but I felt like the only way that this collab was going to work the way we wanted it was it had to be a pop-up, right? Because it's like, if it was like an online mint and we're just like, yeah, we fulfill it like on a t-shirt and we send it to you afterwards, it wasn't going to have the same
it'd be fine.
Yeah,
it'd be fine. In fact, I think a lot of people will be minting online, obviously, but I think the experience of being there in person is going to be really special, and I can't wait to mint mine.
Yeah. No, same. I feel the same. And, I know we're coming close to the top of the hour. I want to thank you for taking the time. And I know you're going to be coming by. I think we have to make sure we get the schedules right. I don't want to announce it publicly till we have it, but you'll be there for a couple hours throughout the week. I think on Tuesday night you're probably going to be there for, I think, a couple hours
Yep.
for a little bit.
Yeah, it'll be fun, that opening party, and I'd love to be there. Like if we can get to a point where we can announce a couple times that I'll be there to watch everybody mint their stuff, like that'd be great. Ideally I should be 2 doors down at the Art Blocks thing too, so y'all can kind of drag me over there if you're about to mint your shirt. But getting some times on the calendar where like for sure I'm going to be able to be there and say hello, it would be really fun and meaningful for me to do that.
Cool. Amazing. Yeah, I think, all right. So somebody was asking, for those interested in the public mint, is it first come, first serve? Yes. For the public reservations, which start on Tuesday at noon, it's first come, first serve through the token proof website. And for this drop, there is no advantage to holding other 90cc NFTs. In iteration 1, there's a Justin Aversano Looks NFT and an IYK proof of 90cc NFT. Will IT2 have the same stack? Okay, so basically the way it's going to work, and Snow, feel free to drop if you have another call or stuff, because these are live questions coming in.
I'm good until 10 or okay. 11. Yeah.
Okay, cool. So basically the way this will work is that you mint the you pay for the actual shirt while you're there at the live event, and then the NFT that you mint gets linked to the actual shirt through the NFC chip. So that NFT will be similar. It's going to be linked through the IYK proof of 90cc iteration 1 NFT. So there won't be an equivalent of a Looks NFT. Lisa, if you want to hit me with anything else before we open up in 2 minutes on the reservation system. Okay, it seems like that's it. But Snowfro, thank you for coming on. Best of luck in Mexico City. Can't wait to see you again in 2 weeks. Or 2 weeks, week and a half, I guess. 2 weeks, I don't even know at this point. But I really can't wait. I love working with you. I can't say how much I love you as a human, and how you've affected my life so positively in the short amount of time that I've known you. And you've always been someone that I look to in the space as a guiding light. And
I appreciate that, man. You too. You've really outdone yourself in this space. You've really impacted it in a positive way. You've delighted a ton of people. So thank you. And that reflects on you because of the quality of the team that you have. It is such a delight to work with your team. And I think that, it's a reflection on who you are. Shout out to your team. Shout out to the Art Blocks team that's been just instrumental in kind of helping put this together. And shout out to all the people that are out there, especially the ones that came to Marfa Aventurine. It was really nice spending time with you. And I know there was a bunch of others. So yeah, thank you. Thank you all. It's going to be fun. See you in Miami.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Snow.
Thank you.